Did you know that under the UK's 2025 Immigration Control Bill, millions of people could face sudden detention or deportation without even a chance to fight back? Families torn apart, vulnerable individuals sent back to dangerous situations, and British citizens losing their loved ones. This is the harsh reality that could unfold. The law is set to dramatically reshape immigration in the UK, giving the government sweeping powers to remove people without giving them a fair chance to stay. But what does this mean for you? Could you or someone you know be at risk? The consequences are more far-reaching than anyone might expect, and it's time to understand just how this law could change everything. Are you next? Number 10. Impact on public sentiment and protests. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill is already sparking widespread public backlash across the UK, with many fearing the bill's sweeping implications will deepen social divisions and fuel discrimination. As the bill moves forward, protests against its provisions are expected to intensify, with activists, human rights organisations, and members of the public voicing their concerns about the potential harm it will cause to vulnerable populations. A significant portion of the population feels that the bill will unfairly target migrants and undocumented workers, further exacerbating xenophobia and racism in communities. This growing opposition comes from a variety of sources, including political leaders, legal experts, and grassroots movements who argued that the bill violates fundamental rights and international obligations to protect asylum seekers and refugees. The increased potential for family separations, wrongful deportations, and discrimination has made the law a major point of contention for those advocating for human dignity and justice. In response, mass protests are expected, with people taking to these streets to demand that the government reconsider or amend the bill. These protests will likely amplify existing public debates about the UK's immigration policies, leading to public pressure on political leaders to assess their stance. As the bill moves through Parliament, the debate over its legitimacy will continue to evolve, with growing concerns that the legislation will undermine the UK's reputation for being a fair and welcoming society. The public discourse surrounding the bill is expected to play a pivotal role in shaping future immigration policies and could influence political landscapes in the years to come. Number 9. Immigration enforcement in local communities. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill introduces a new level of immigration enforcement at the community level, which significantly alters the relationship between local authorities and migrant populations. Under this law, immigration officers will work closely with local authorities to target undocumented migrants within communities, conducting routine checks in public spaces, workplaces, and even people's homes. This increased surveillance will lead to higher levels of tension in local communities. Individuals with uncertain immigration status may be reluctant to interact with authorities fearing detention or deportation. Local government officials, landlords, and employers will now be required to assist in identifying and reporting individuals who may be living in the UK without proper documentation. This approach turns everyday citizens into a network of informants, increasing the risk of discrimination and xenophobia in neighbourhoods, workplaces, and schools. People who are simply trying to go about their daily lives may face the threat of being reported to immigration authorities, leading to fear and hostility in communities that were once more welcoming and inclusive. Moreover, this law could disproportionately affect marginalized groups, particularly those who are already vulnerable or living in poverty. Ethnic minorities and low-income individuals are likely to be disproportionately targeted by immigration enforcement due to their higher likelihood of being undocumented. The increased presence of immigration officers in local communities could lead to a climate of fear, where residents avoid seeking essential services like healthcare, education, or police protection out of fear of being detained. Critics argue that this approach not only erodes community trust, but also undermines the social cohesion necessary for healthy, diverse communities. Number 8. Streamlining the asylum process. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill introduces significant changes to the way asylum applications are processed, aiming to expedite decision-making and limit the rights of asylum seekers. Under the new law, the asylum process will be fast-tracked with much quicker interviews and decisions. However, this comes at the cost of due process and the fair treatment of applicants. Asylum seekers will no longer have the same amount of time to present their cases or gather necessary evidence to support their claims. The law also limits their ability to remain in the UK while waiting for a decision, meaning many will face uncertainty and an anxiety about their futures. While the government justifies this fast-tracking as a way to reduce backlogs and improve efficiency, it raises serious concerns about fairness. A rushed asylum process leaves little room for careful, thoughtful consideration of each individual's case. Some applicants, especially those from countries experiencing conflict or persecution, may not have the resources to gather all the necessary documentation or to present a compelling case within such a narrow time frame. This could result in rejected applications for those who are genuinely in need of asylum. Critics argue that speeding up the asylum process increases the risk of incorrect decisions and wrongful deportation. Asylum seekers may be forced to leave the UK even if they have legitimate claims for protection due to an expedited process that overlooks critical details. Human rights organizations warn that this could lead to a systemic denial of asylum for people fleeing dangerous situations, ultimately undermining the UK's commitment to providing refuge to those in need. The right to seek asylum should be protected, and a rushed process threatens this fundamental principle. Number 7. Deportation of people with criminal records. Under the 2025 Immigration Control Bill, individuals with criminal records are at an increased risk of being deported, even if they have lived in the UK for many years. This law introduces a policy where any foreign national with a criminal conviction, no matter how minor or how long ago it occurred, can be subject to deportation. Criminal records, regardless of the individual's rehabilitation or integration into society, could trigger an immediate removal from the country. The law treats criminality as an automatic justification for deportation, which has raised concerns about its fairness and effectiveness. One of the most controversial aspects of this provision is that individuals who have already served their sentences and reintegrated into society may still face deportation. Those who have lived in the UK for decades, have established families or contributed positively to their communities, may be removed from their homes and families simply because of a past conviction. This risks creating a two-tier system where some individuals, despite being rehabilitated and law-abiding citizens, are penalized for past mistakes. The law does not differentiate between serious criminal offenses and minor infractions, which could lead to disproportionate outcome. This policy could also disproportionately affect migrants and immigrants of color, who may face heightened surveillance and scrutiny within the criminal justice system. Critics argue that the blanket approach to deportation could undermine the principles of justice and second chances. It does not take into account the full context of an individual's life, including their contributions to society or their potential for rehabilitation. Human rights groups argue that this law could lead to unfair deportations and the unnecessary separation of families and communities. Number 6. Impact on British nationals with foreign family members. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill also has serious implications for British nationals with non-citizen family members. Under this new law, even individuals who have citizenship in the UK could see their foreign relatives detained or deported. This means that long-term British citizens could face forced separation from their spouses, children, or other relatives due to their immigration status. The law doesn't consider the personal ties and deep-rooted connections many individuals have built in the UK over the years. It creates an atmosphere where even established families can be disrupted, leading to emotional distress and uncertainty about their futures. One of the most concerning aspects of this law is the automatic nature of deportation for foreign family members, regardless of how long they've lived in the UK or their contributions to the country. A British citizen married to an undocumented migrant, for instance, could be separated from their spouse and children. Born and raised in the UK, could face deportation alongside their parents. These situations create a profound emotional toll, as families who've lived together for years may find themselves ripped apart, sometimes without any clear path to reunification. Additionally, this law could have a disproportionate impact on marginalized communities, including those with mixed-status families. Many of these families have contributed significantly to the UK, whether through work, taxes, or community engagement, but the law does not recognize these contributions. Instead, it focuses purely on immigration status, creating a legal environment where family unity is undermined. Critics argue that this approach disregards the value of family bonds and the essential role they play in maintaining social stability. Number 5. Limited access to legal aid. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill significantly limits access to legal aid for individuals fighting deportation, asylum denial, or other immigration-related cases. Legal aid, which traditionally provided support for those suitable to afford legal representation, is now subject to tighter restrictions. Many migrants, asylum seekers, and refugees who cannot afford legal fees will find themselves unable to secure proper representation in court. This change undermines the fairness of the immigration process, as those without legal support are at a disadvantage when challenging deportation or other decisions that affect their ability to remain in the UK. One of the most troubling aspects of this law is that it reduces the opportunity for individuals to contest immigration decisions, including detention, deportation orders, and asylum rejections. Without legal assistance, many will face a much higher risk of being wrongfully removed from the UK or denied asylum. Migrant communities, already vulnerable, will bear the brunt of these restrictions, as they often lack the means or resources to fight complex legal battles. Legal aid restrictions disproportionately impact individuals from low-income backgrounds, making it more difficult for them to navigate the immigration system. The reduction in legal support not only harms individuals directly affected by deportation laws, but it also places additional pressure on the UK's justice system, with fewer individuals able to challenge wrongful deportations or seek asylum. The risk of unjust decisions increases. This undermines the principle of justice and fairness, essential components of any democratic society. Human rights organizations warned that this law might lead to a systemic denial of justice, leaving many people in vulnerable situations without the proper means to protect their rights or their futures. Number 4. Deportation of vulnerable individuals. Under the 2025 Immigration Control Bill, the deportation of vulnerable individuals has become a central focus of the UK's immigration enforcement strategy. Even individuals who are considered at risk, such as children, victims of human trafficking, and those fleeing persecution are no longer exempt from deportation under this law. This has raised significant concerns among human rights advocates, who argue that deporting such individuals puts them at severe risk of harm. These groups, often fleeing life-threatening circumstances, may find themselves sent back to countries where they face danger or injustice. The law also affects families, particularly those with children who were born in the UK. Children born to undocumented migrants can now be deported with their parents, which places many children in a precarious situation. The potential separation of children from their families is particularly concerning, as it can cause long-term emotional and psychological trauma. Families who have lived in the UK for years might be torn apart, creating uncertainty about the future of these children and their well-being in an unfamiliar country. Furthermore, victims of domestic violence or those seeking asylum because of life-threatening conditions in their home countries could also face deportation under the new law. For these individuals, deportation could return them to situations where their safety is compromised, violating their rights to protection and security. Critics argue that this law undermines the UK's international commitments to protect the most vulnerable, and that migrants and refugees should be treated with compassion, not subjected to removal in such harmful circumstances. The human toll of these deportations is a growing concern for both citizens and human rights groups alike. Number 3. The hostile environment policy reinforced. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill strengthens the hostile environment policy, which aims to make life difficult for individuals without legal immigration status. This policy creates an environment where people who are not legally in the UK face challenges in accessing essential services, employment, housing, and more. Under this law, public services such as healthcare, education, and welfare are now required to check individuals' immigration status before providing assistance. This forces public institutions to act as a form of immigration enforcement, potentially denying services to those without the proper documentation. One of the most concerning elements of this law is that it extends the reach of immigration enforcement to private sectors such as landlords and employers. Landlords must verify the immigration status of potential tenants before offering a rental contract. If they fail to do so, they risk facing heavy fines or penalties. Similarly, employers will be required to confirm the immigration status of employees, and failure to do so could result in legal action against the company. This policy creates a climate of fear and suspicion where individuals without proper documentation may be denied basic rights or access to services simply due to their immigration status. The hostile environment policy can also lead to discrimination and exploitation. Vulnerable migrants might avoid seeking healthcare or reporting crimes because of fear of being detained or deported. This can result in serious public health concerns, as people might go untreated for medical conditions, including contagious diseases, increasing the risk to society. The policy could also fuel a climate of xenophobia, and further marginalize already vulnerable communities. Number 2, increased deportation orders. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill drastically increases the use of deportation orders for individuals living in the UK without legal status. Under this new law, deportations will be issued swiftly and frequently, with little time for individuals to mount a defense. The law essentially fast-tracks the deportation process, allowing the government to remove people from the country before they can challenge the decision in court. This marks a major shift from the previous process where people had more opportunities to contest deportation through the judicial system. The key change with this law is the automatic nature of many deportation orders, particularly for those with certain immigration violations. Once an individual is deemed to be residing in the UK unlawfully, the process for removal begins almost immediately. This makes it difficult for people to contest their deportation, especially for individuals who may have complex immigration histories, or those who have been living in the UK for years. For many, this law could disrupt their lives and the lives of their families, creating a sense of uncertainty about their future. While the government justifies these measures as a way to tackle illegal immigration, critics argue that they could lead to the removal of individuals who have deep connections to the UK, such as family ties, work history, or even children born in the country. The inability to appeal or delay deportation orders raises serious concerns about fairness. Human rights organizations warn that such laws could lead to unjust deportations, leaving people vulnerable to separation from their families and lives they've built within the UK. The long-term impact on the emotional and psychological well-being of those affected remains uncertain. Number 1. Expedited detention powers. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill introduces expedited detention powers, enabling the UK government to detain individuals suspected of illegal immigration without prior notice. This law empowers authorities to act swiftly, allowing them to detain individuals at any time, often with little to no warning. People can be held in detention centres for extended periods, even before they have a chance to present their case in court. This swift action aims to reduce the time spent on processing immigration-related cases, but it comes at the cost of personal freedoms and due process. One of the most concerning aspects of this law is the limited judicial oversight in detention decisions. Traditionally, individuals facing deportation had the right to challenge their detention in court. However, with expedited detention powers, the system has been streamlined to prioritize efficiency over individual rights. This shift raises alarms among human rights advocates, who argue that such changes could lead to wrongful detentions, particularly for vulnerable individuals who might not have their sources or knowledge to contest their detention. Additionally, this law significantly increases the risk of people being detained under questionable circumstances such as minor administrative errors or misunderstandings about immigration status. The absence of proper checks and balances means that people who are lawfully residing in the UK could be wrongfully detained for extended periods. Asylum seekers, migrants, and even long-term residents could find themselves caught in this system, highlighting the potential dangers of such a policy. Human rights groups and legal experts warn that these powers might violate fundamental rights to liberty and fair trial protections, which are critical elements of a just society. The 2025 Immigration Control Bill is set to drastically change the landscape of immigration in the UK, potentially affecting millions of lives. From expedited detention powers to the deportation of vulnerable individuals, the law broadens the scope of government control, potentially stripping individuals of their rights and freedoms without proper judicial review. For migrants and asylum seekers, the bill creates an environment of fear and uncertainty, making it harder to seek protection or challenge unjust deportation orders. The bill also extends its reach into communities, making local authorities, landlords, and even everyday people responsible for reporting undocumented individuals. This has the potential to fuel xenophobia and discrimination, undermining the trust that communities once had in one another. And with the restrictions on legal aid, many vulnerable individuals will have no way to defend themselves, increasing the likelihood of wrongful deportations. The ripple effect of this law could be profound, not only for those directly impacted, but for the entire social fabric of the UK. While the government claims that this law is necessary to curb illegal immigration, it is important to question whether the human cost outweighs the benefits. With many groups already speaking out in opposition, it's clear that the debate over this bill is far from over. Its ultimate impact remains uncertain. But one thing is clear: it's a law that could shape the future of immigration in the UK for years to come. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your opinions. And if you found this video eye-opening, don't miss our previous one, where we dive even deeper into the UK's immigration policies. If you support our efforts, consider hitting subscribe. It's just don't click to stay updated, and we truly appreciate